The three types of suffering according to the Buddhism distinguishes three types of suffering to help us understand the nature of suffering. Dukkha dukkha. This is suffering from direct physical and mental pain. It includes the obvious suffering from birth, aging, illness, and death, as well as the discomfort caused by insecurity and emotional pain from loss. The Buddha explained this as the suffering of suffering, which is the most apparent suffering that everyone fears. Viparinama dukkha. This is suffering arising from change. Everything good can change, and the loss of those things brings suffering. For example, when joy fades, happiness ends, we feel disappointed and heartbroken. Viparinama dukkha is called suffering due to decay, because happiness fades and is no longer, as the conditions that brought it disappear. Every moment of joy carries the potential for decay and suffering. Sakkara dukkha. This is the most subtle suffering, arising from the impermanent nature of all phenomena. Everything that arises from conditions is not lasting and cannot give us lasting happiness. Buddha pointed out that Sakkara dukkha is the basic dissatisfaction that pervades all existence, because all forms of life are changing, impermanent, and have no fixed nature. That is, even when we are not suffering from physical or changeable suffering, there is still an underlying feeling of incompleteness, an inability to fully satisfy ourselves. This is Sakkara dukkha. We can escape the first two types of suffering through changing conditions, but Sakkara dukkha is fundamental, compelling us to face impermanence and understand the true nature of everything. These three types of suffering represent different perspectives on suffering in life, from the obvious to the subtle. When fully understood, they reveal the extent of dukkha and why Buddhism considers suffering as an essential starting point for practice. Recognizing each type of suffering allows us to deeply appreciate the Buddha's teaching. All phenomena arising from conditions are suffering, a philosophy known as Sakkara dukkha. The causes of suffering: greed, hatred, and ignorance. The Buddha taught that purifying the mind is the way to cut off the source of suffering. The root cause that keeps people clinging to suffering is the three poisons: greed, hatred, and ignorance. According to Buddhist teachings, these three poisons are negative mental states inherent in all beings and directly generate the cycle of suffering. Specifically, greed, lust, desire. This is the craving and insatiable desire for pleasant sensations or possessions. When greed dominates, we are always reaching out for new joy, never satisfied. Greed causes us suffering when we cannot obtain what we desire, and anxiety arises from the fear of losing what we already have. Hatred, anger, aversion. This is the intense reaction when things do not go as we wish. A person filled with anger cannot tolerate adversity, often becoming enraged, hateful, or tormenting others. Hatred causes conflict, harm to both the person who harbors it and the object of hatred. It keeps the mind heated, increasing suffering. Ignorance, delusion, unawareness. This is the lack of understanding of the truth, forgetting impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Ignorance is the root cause of clinging to illusions, a fixed self, the permanence of the world, etc. When we do not see the truth, we remain trapped in greed and hatred. Ignorance distorts reality, creating vast seas of suffering. In Buddhism, it is precisely greed, hatred, and ignorance that cause suffering and bind sentient beings to the cycle of samsara. Therefore, the spiritual path begins with clearing the forest of these poisons. As the Dhammapada teaches, only when the forest of greed, hatred, and ignorance is cut down can a person be liberated from suffering. Identifying and purifying these three toxins is the first step in resolving